Hey everyone, we are fresh off of the bye week. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know that sometimes that 2 weeks can just feel like 2 years. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but I just feel like I aged so much over the bye week, especially when they go in on a loss. Like a couple of years ago, they had the Hail Murray happen, and then they went into the bye week, and that was just brutal. And the Bills were awesome that year. That was the last game they would lose in the entire regular season. They wouldn't lose again until the AFC Championship in Kansas City. And let's tie that in. We can use that as a little tie-in because this year, the Bills go into the bye week with a win in Kansas City. You have every reason to be excited. They take sole possession of first place in the AFC. They now have the tiebreaker with Kansas City, who presumably is going to win that division because the rest of the teams just don't look very good, even though, coming into the season we thought the AFC West was just going to be a bunch of juggernauts. It looks like it's just Kansas City again. So they have that leg up there with them. That's huge. But I want to bring it down a little bit. Be excited. Absolutely be excited. I don't want to be like, Greg, hey, why are you being antsy at a picnic right now? Why are you raiding on this parade? I'm not. But, the Bills were like they were like the 3 or 4 seed last year, right? I don't remember off the top of my head. They certainly weren't the 1 or the 2. They were the 3 or the 4 seed last year. And they beat Kansas City in the regular season within the first 2 months of the season. They went to Arrowhead on Sunday Night Football. They won, but something I've talked about on these videos all season, they goofed around a little bit the rest of the season, had a couple bad losses, and they ended up being, still winning the division, but being like the 3 or 4 seed and allowing Kansas City to pass them. That tiebreaker that they had against Kansas City did not come into play. And they had to go on the road to Arrowhead, and for the second consecutive season, they lost there in the playoffs. Their season ended there. So, to tie this in again with something that happened earlier in the year in this Bills-Miami game, I saw a lot of Bills fans, in the past few weeks, I suppose, talking about Miami and their fans like, oh, haha, congrats on your, Week 3 Super Bowl win. Well, that's what Chiefs fans can say to us, okay? So if you have Chiefs fans coming at you like, talking trash, like, yeah, you beat us, but, we'll see come January. You kind of have to allow that because we haven't beat them in the playoffs. We've beat them a couple times in the regular season, and until we beat them in the playoffs, they hold that trump card, or however you want to call it. So, just, you can't, all I'm saying is you just can't be one of those fans that's, yelling at Miami fans about, congrats on your Week 3 Super Bowl win, and then be mad about Chiefs fans for saying the same thing to you. And I know that Twitter is the ultimate place for opinions and trash talk and stuff like this. And, that's where I see most of it. So that's why I bring it up. Anyway, I just want to talk about the game now, obviously. Starts off great, but not great. Finishes not great. The Bills go right down the field in a couple of minutes, they had some nice plays along the way, and I'm trying to remember them. The Gabe Davis pass was early for 22 yards. Singletary was awesome on the opening drive. Caught a couple of passes, ran for a bunch of yards. He had 27 rushing yards on the first drive alone, with a couple of receptions as well. And then the Bills get down to the 13-yard line, and there's this weird pitch option play, and Isaiah McKenzie doesn't really know what's going on, or I don't know. I don't know the story there. But he fumbles it, and the Chiefs take over. And right away you're thinking, oh my God, you just can't make mistakes against this team. You can't make mistakes against good teams. You don't want to make mistakes, period. Okay? But when you make them against good teams, that's usually when they come back to bite you. I've said this a bunch of times on these videos, all teams get luck. All teams are lucky at some point throughout a game, throughout the course of a season, whatever. All teams inherently get this good luck at some point. You just don't realize it with the bad teams because they don't do anything about it. They get a lucky break and then they go 3 and out. Or they turn the ball right back over. They don't score. They lose the game because they're bad. But teams like Kansas City and now teams like the Bills are that team. We're just used to being on the wrong end of this. But the Bills have been that team for the past couple of years. However, you still got to, when you come up against good teams, such as Kansas City, this logic or this rule or whatever you want to call it, this still applies. So that turnover was tough on the first drive because the Bills are walking down the field. They're eating 5 minutes off the clock. They look like they're going to put 7 up, and instead they turn the ball right over. Kansas City, bang, 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 down the field, a bunch of plays, bunch of time off the clock, and they ultimately throw an interception as well. So they give it right back. Like, that's fortunate. I don't want to say it's like Mahomes just doesn't usually make that throw. So it's amazing that it's awesome. Luck, luck. You're gonna say like that's not luck. That's Kaiir Elam making a great play, and it certainly was. It certainly was. You're just not used to seeing Mahomes make that type of play, make that type of throw. He likes to do the spins and the flips and the stuff like that, and forcing throws in the tight windows. But turnovers in the red zone just aren't his thing. So you're fortunate there. You're whatever. Wipe that clean. You're even there. The Bills would score a field goal on the next drive, and then give up a long touchdown to Juju Smith-Schuster, which was just weird. The Bills just never do that. That never happens. And then, of course, they come up against a good team like Kansas City, and they're just missing tackles or running into each other on a weird 3rd and 10 play, and suddenly it's 7-3. It was... You're like, oh, okay. How do I want to word this? I don't try to hold things like that against them because they don't happen too often. And I understand that they're probably going to happen at some point. It's unfortunate that it cost them 7 points. But I was still optimistic about the defense overall because even though they had given up a lot of plays for like a lot of yards, like even the first drive was a lot of plays. I don't have the exact number, but like it was Mahomes to Hardman, Mahomes to Hardman, Mahomes to Juju, Mahomes to Scantling or whoever, Mahomes scrambling. Like it was just like, oh my God. They weren't really breaking. That's kind of a theme that they've had. They will sometimes give up drives here and there, but they don't really break. They're not really a team that gets walked over, Anyway, the Bills get the ball back down 7-3. They get down to the 3-yard line. They go for it on 4th and goal at the 3. They don't make it. They would do that again later in the game. Where was it? Now I have the drive chart up. They had a 4th and 3 from the Kansas City 46, and they didn't make it again. Like, these are the things that a lot of times you need to break your way. But much credit to the Bills. They forced a late punt in the first half by the Chiefs, thanks to a Von Miller sack. Von Miller was incredible, by the way. He made 4 plays, and they all mattered. One was like a stop, I believe, on Edwards-Helaire. Next play, Elam intercepted the ball. The sack that led to the punt that I just mentioned in the first half, near the end of the first half. He had another trip, grabbed Mahomes kind of by the foot as he was scrambling, and Mahomes fell for a gain of 3. He had some room in front of him, but it was a big 3rd down, and that led to a field goal attempt that ultimately made it 20-17. And then he obviously makes the sack on the ensuing possession after the Bills punted away themselves. They take a big sack from Chris Jones and punt the ball back to the Chiefs while trailing with 7 minutes to go. And you're wondering if the Chiefs are going to drive down the field and put the game away, but no, Von comes up with a huge sack on 3rd down to get the ball back, and the Bills finally put together a really nice drive and cap it off with the game-winning touchdown to Dawson Knox. That's the abbreviated version there, even though I've been talking about the game for like 5 or 6 minutes now. I want to talk about the things that were impressive, annoying, obviously. Super impressive, that last drive that I just talked about to Dawson Knox. Capped off with that touchdown to Dawson Knox. All Josh Allen, pretty much. Allen finding Diggs. Diggs had 3 catches on the drive for 34 yards. He scrambled a couple of times. More than a couple of times it looks like. Yeah, 1 for 16 yards, a couple for 5 more yards. But, you need that drive. We're finally getting it. I criticized them a little bit last year for not getting that drive. Now the Bills are getting it. They have Josh Allen. He's one of the best players. Of course he's coming through in these situations, and that's super encouraging. That's 2 one-score games in the past 3 weeks that the Bills have won. The sequence at the end of the half was just awesome too. The Bills they have a 3rd and 13 from their own 1 with 80 seconds to go. They're on their own one with 80 seconds to go in the half, and they score a touchdown with 20 seconds to go in the half. So it took them a minute to go 99 yards. Allen works his way out of trouble in the end zone, finds Gabe Davis for the first down, hits Diggs on a deeper pass, later on, and then Shakir makes a nice play, and then bang, they finally pick on these young rookie corners that Kansas City was playing, and 34-yard touchdown, bang. The end of the half was also annoying because they gave the ball back to Kansas City with 16 seconds left, and they gave up another field goal. They ran a short pass to McKinnon, and then that was basically the same play to Kelsey to get in the field goal range. And of course, it's good from 62. But I guess Bucker would make up for it at the end of that, or the first drive of the third quarter by missing a field goal. Sure, whatever. Huge play, obviously, by Taron Johnson to seal it. Again, that's Milano had a fantastic game. He came up with a huge tackle of Pacheco. It was just one-on-one, and Pacheco looked like he had like 30 yards up the sideline on one of those drives. And he flushes, him and Vaughn, I believe it was, flush Mahomes out of the pocket. Mahomes doesn't see Taron Johnson rushing, and they're bang, game-sealing interception. Just an awesome moment for the team. Super satisfying for us as well, obviously. I guess I didn't get to one annoying thing in this game, and I was making it a point to myself to talk about it before I move on to Green Bay here. Mahomes. It drives me insane. I like Patrick Mahomes, okay? I do. He's a likable player, really. He's fantastic. If you're watching him against anybody but your favorite team, you're like, wow, that guy's incredible. But when there's a penalty on the defense, and he does this thing, it's his arm goes straight up, and then the hand straight out. It's like this. And he goes like this. Oh, man, it just reeks of, like, do you know who my dad is energy? Like, this spoiled, rotten kid, like, ha 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 ha. Oh man, it was driving me absolutely up the wall because the Bills were called for a couple of penalties in the game. Anyway, they won. They're 5-1. They're atop the AFC. They're the only one-loss team in the AFC. They're probably still going to have to contend with Kansas City, but if they can make Kansas City go on the road in the playoffs, which Patrick Mahomes has never done, advantage Bills. Like I alluded to earlier, I think Kansas City's walking away with that division. The Chargers, who knows? They have a bunch of injuries. I don't think their coach is really the guy for the job. His thing was supposed to be defense, and they're bad on defense. And then Denver, their thing was supposed to be offense, and they're bad on offense. This thing about like coming up with Denver especially, I guess, and I don't mean to make this about Denver, but you go to hire these like innovative play callers, these young he draws up great plays. Those guys aren't really necessarily ready to be head coaches of football teams. The only way to get them is to make them your head coach. But sometimes they're not ready. Nate Hackett, perfect example of that, not ready. But they're 2 games up on Baltimore, who they've beaten. The Bills are. They're a game up on Tennessee, who they've beaten. So they've beaten all 3 other division leaders. Huge. Absolutely huge. Inside track for home field for sure. And the schedule is favorable. They have 3 out of their 4 games, upcoming games, are at home. 5 out of the next 8. And they don't really play any juggernauts. Minnesota's probably the best team. Who would have thought that with Green Bay coming up on Sunday Night Football, with Aaron Rodgers coming up on Sunday Night Football, that I don't want to say more interested, but like maybe you're thinking more about the Jets because the Jets are 5-2, and a lot of people I think that the Jets probably are pretenders more than contenders because Zach Wilson doesn't look great. They're not really throwing the ball very well. They were running and winning, and now Breece Hall is out with a torn ACL. I just couldn't have imagined prioritizing that game, really, even though it's a divisional game, over the Packers game because the Packers are a team on the decline. They got rid of Devontae Adams in the offseason, and they are struggling to replace him. They are going to play. Sammy Watkins is coming back to Buffalo for the first time since he was traded. Christian Watson will be there, but Cobb is hurt. Looks like Lazard might not be able to play. So they have Watson and Sammy Watkins and Romeo Doubs, Robert Tonyan. Like, the Packers are really struggling to move the football. They aren't running it well, and they have Aaron Jones, who is their best player on offense, and they throw to him once in a while too. He's a great pass catching back in his own right. And Dillon is to an extent as well. They have a nice tandem at running back, but for some reason they just can't figure it out. I mean, they've blown leads to they blew a big lead to the Giants. They blew a lead to Washington this past week. And who else did they lose to in the middle? Oh, the Jets. They lost to the Jets at home. Just a beatdown by the Jets. Like I said, the Jets, they're looking pretty nice on defense. Sauce Gardner looks like the real deal. Quinnen Williams coming into his own. And they've had C.J. Mosley in the middle level. Like they have players at every level. But anyway, we'll talk about the Jets next week. I want to talk a little bit more about the Packers. The Packers' total yardage has gone down. Total offensive yardage has gone down 4 consecutive weeks. So they were 443, 3 consecutive weeks, I guess. 443 against New England, their last win, an overtime win against Bailey Zappi. They went down to 301 against the Giants, 278 against the Jets, and 232 against Washington. So they're trending downward big time. They are ripe for the picking. Like, they have injuries on the offensive line. Maybe Bakhtiari is back this week. He's one of the league's best left tackles. Elton Jenkins is a fantastic interior O-lineman. Really, he can do anything. But there's weaknesses. There's weaknesses to be exposed there, and they don't have any real weapons, honestly. So I don't even think that the fact that Trey White isn't coming back this week is really going to play a factor. It really hasn't played too much of a factor yet, to be honest with you. So the Bills are adding to defense as the year goes on without actually making a trade by getting their best cornerback in the lineup again, which is just awesome. And I think the Bills are big on like the ramping up and like making sure everyone's ready, and they've stayed relatively healthy over the McDermott era. So I'm gonna trust them with this. I would have loved to have had Trey White back for Sunday Night Football, maybe get defensive introductions for the game, and he comes out of the tunnel. Like, I don't know, just thinking about the perfect moment, But this is like this game just looks so much less intimidating than it did 2 months ago. He's still Aaron Rodgers. He's won 13 consecutive primetime games, and he has like 36 touchdowns and 2 picks in that time. But he had Devontae Adams for most of those. The only one that he didn't was the Bears this year in Week 2, and he owns the Bears. The last time he was in Buffalo, the Bills won. I don't think, that doesn't really matter at all, but he struggled here the first time he was here. I expect him to struggle again. Like, he had Jordy Nelson that time, and Cobb, and whoever else. Was Adams on the team yet? 14? I'm not sure. But, just a significant downgrade in what he's working with. So I'm going to pick the Bills. I'm definitely picking the Bills to win. It's the first time Rodgers is a double-digit underdog in his entire career. It's 10.5. I've seen it 10.5. I've seen it 11.5. It's moved around a little bit. I think that's right. I think the Bills are that much better. I'm going to pick the Bills. Let's go with 30-15. I just don't. As good as the Packers have been at times on defense, they can't really stop the run, which obviously isn't the Bills' forte. But I can't imagine them stopping Josh Allen, especially if Rashawn Gary, who's in concussion protocol, their best pass rusher, is unable to play. They're the only team that's ever shut out Josh Allen. They did it his rookie year. It was not a great game for him, not a good look, but a lot has changed since then for both franchises. So we'll see you all on Sunday night. I will see you guys at the game. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy Sunday Night Football. And thank you for coming this far in the video. I went a little bit longer than I usually do. But as always, above all else,